Hey! Welcome to our video blog. We're going to try this format out and see if it works. Right now we have poor recording equipment, so you may not be able to hear us well or see us well.
But if you can, hi.
Hello. I'm John.
I'm Ann.
You probably could have guessed that. And we're going to answer some questions. And we're going to start small, and maybe if this ends up succeeding, do more questions each week. We don't know when it'll come out. We'll probably pick a day of the week, and it'll come out on that day. But for now, Anne's going to read a question.
I am. So our question today, the first one, is are role-playing restrictions a valid metric to use when balancing a knack or a boon? For example, is it okay for a knack or a boon to be more powerful than average because overuse will make NPCs beat you up?
Okay, good question. It is obviously in reference to our theme music conversation from last week about how, there's a cat in the screen. It's fine. Cats can be in screens. About how theme music is super powerful, but if you overuse it, then NPCs are going to get upset. They're not going to like it. I think it's definitely a very valid metric. Scion specifically sets out ahead of time talking about how it's going to happen. I believe in the Engender Love. It talks about fool Odin once, shame on him. Fool him twice, shame on you. If you engender love powerful people, they're going to get upset about it.
There are actually a lot of powers in the games that do that. For example, like any of the changing the moon phase or making the sun rise, like any of those are things that are extremely powerful but are going to also really upset other people if you use them a lot. And while it's a more fuzzy metric because you can't reduce it down to just numbers, it is a valid way to say this is power that you can't use all the time.
Yes. Generally, when I look at balancing a power, I look at the actual legend cost of the power, the effect of the power, and how often you can use the power. So, for example, something like skin shedding is fairly cheap, super powerful, but you can only use it once per scene, so it's very strictly balanced around that. Something like the sun power you're talking about, Daybreak. That's pretty expensive. It's crazy powerful. Obviously, you're moving the sun, but that one you could technically use every day. I guess if you want to just keep the fucking sun there, but
you're gonna get raffles down.
Yeah, there's going to be 12, 13 sun gods who are going to be very not happy about that, and that's a very real thing. If we said Daybreak's really powerful, but I mean technically you could use it all the time. So let's make it really cheap, then that wouldn't be a good metric, because something that powerful, it's easy to see how people can't use it all the time. People don't think about that a lot with theme music, and I think those people aren't really thinking about how intrinsic the theme music is to things kind of happening around you.
Because theme music is really intrusive. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, it's great, and it looks amazing, and you are the coolest person in the entire room when you have it on. But if you have it on all the time, even people that like you are going to be upset because it's irritating. It's irritating,
yeah. If you ever had a friend who really likes a song, and so they play that song all the time, like, eventually you want to throw that song out the window.
And I mean, sometimes it's fine, because, that's his song, but if he's playing it 80 times in a row, no matter what you're doing, you're done with him.
And if it's a super charisma guy, and you really like him, and you really love him, but that song becomes part of your life because of it, even if you like that song, eventually you're going to get tired of it.
and then force multiply that by the fact that the people that you're irritating might be Legend 12 gods.
Yes.
And they can just smash you.
Yeah. If you enter Odin's Hall playing your theme music, he's probably going to smash you. There could be the really impressive charisma roll that beats his ridiculous willpower integrity legend roll of like 110. And that may be something like your legendary deed to make him not hate you. But otherwise, if you enter a king's land playing your own music, you're going to get shat on.
Especially when you're dealing with other people that maybe want the spotlight themselves, or that just don't want to deal with you being constantly the spotlight. It's not just something that's irritating, but something that can easily be construed as disrespectful. Respect
is an important thing that I think a lot of people don't get for theme music. It's disrespectful. You're saying, I'm the most important person here, everyone has to hear my song, and you're going to fucking deal with it. It's very disrespectful to pretty much everyone else.
And if they love you, they'll put up with it once in a while, but if you start using it all the time, even people that love you are going to be done with that.
Yeah. So that was more of answering a theme music question. To answer the initial question, yes. It is okay to balance what you would call role-playing factors when balancing a boon, because it's not really a role-playing factor, it's actually a factor of how often can you use this boon. It's the time factor that you balance every boon with.
There's a little bit of wiggle room in terms of how you run your game, because if you're a storyteller that just doesn't do that, you don't remember how to, you aren't going to ever look at things and say, well, this person might be upset by power use, then it's going to be less of an important metric. But you should be mindful of those things, because divine politics are always there, no matter what legend you are. So if you're not paying a lot of attention to that, it's going to seem like it's less of an important metric, but it's pretty much a big deal anytime you're interacting with the rest of the world. Any of those powers that involve other people and might upset other people.
Yeah. All right, so I think we answered that. Good job, us.
Long-windedly.
Well, that's how we answer things.
Yeah.
All right, second question.
All right, second question. I have a question about role-playing mental attributes. On paper, they allow a character to formulate plans so elaborate they'd be incomprehensible to a mortal man. To think with the speed and wisdom that makes a modern supercomputer seem like an earthworm. So how are you supposed to play an entity whose decision-making process is so superior to your own?
That's hard.
It's very hard.
I think definitely high levels of mental attributes require constantly more time for that player to work outside of game.
And that's hard to remember sometimes, but it's something that both the player and the storyteller have to be aware of.
Yeah. If you choose to be a really smart character, it's going to take a lot of work out of game that you maybe, if you don't want to put in that work, you probably should play a different character type.
And you can still be, very smart, but if you don't want to put in a lot of time making long-range plans, maybe don't go past, like, Epic Intelligence 5.
Yeah.
Just because in order to come up with something that even vaguely approximates how smart you are, you're going to have to plan ahead of time. You're going to have to plan very complicatedly. You're going to have to put time into it.
Yeah.
And, you're still not going to get to where someone with Legend, level 8 Epic Intelligence could be, because that's actually completely impossible for any of us to do. But it's the best thing that you can do, and when you do that, it does illustrate that your intelligence level and your planning level is higher than most people's in the game, because they're not putting that work in.
So yeah, I think to get the most out of it, you really have to put in that work outside of the game, and then also work with your storyteller, because sometimes if you're not communicating with your storyteller about what your plans want to happen, then you could have a giant thing planned, but then when it happens in game, your storyteller's not ready for it, and you can kind of like shut it down without intentionally knowing that you put that much time into it.
And it's not fair to a storyteller to jump that on him, because he might, he's maybe not shutting it down to shut you down. He's shutting it down because he doesn't know what to do, and he doesn't have time to stop and plan himself right now.
Yeah. So what's best for that is, weeks ahead of time when you're working on this stuff. I know when Anne was playing Aurora, I got a lot of 5-page essays. This is the kind of stuff I want to do. I'm planning to talk to these people and say these things. So if you want to start planning around that, I'll remember that it's my 8 Epic Intelligence brain doing these things. So be planning for me to be really fucking intelligent when I'm doing these things.
Right. And we're talking a lot about intelligence. Other mental stats are hard too. Perception, you just have to be really, both the player and the storyteller have to just be really mindful that your perception is that high. Like, once you get past level 5 Epic Perception, you're in a completely different realm than it's really even possible to remember all the time. You can smell things that are happening miles away. You are seeing everything around you. You're in constant sensory overload.
Yeah, sensory overload is a big problem with perception and remembering that you're in constant sensory overload.
Yeah, by parallel attention, everyone.
Yeah. Well, we constantly reminded Aurora had a lot of perception, so she always dealt with it and she was ready for it. But Go's got a lot of perception kind of all at once. And so we constantly reminded Tom, oh, well, you're in the world and you see for 500 miles. Remember that you also smell and hear everyone taking a shit and having sex in that 500 miles, and that's really offsetting. And probably, you get used to it, but can you ever really get used to that?
Yeah, if you can hear literally millions of people having conversations right now, how are you supposed to do anything else?
Yeah.
So it's something that you don't really have to represent as much in game. You can roleplay as much or little of it as you think your character should be doing, but you always have to remember that it's there. Yeah. And the storyteller may at any time drop distraction penalties on you if you're not doing parallel attention, and they should, because it's distracting. Yeah.
But also the obvious, it sounds really horrible, but the obvious benefit of it is information gathering across that big a spectrum. Like if you pop parallel attention, you are finding out everything that's happening everywhere, everything. And so that's really it's a great boon, but it has penalties. I think just like the intelligence thing, instead of working out of game, it's a lot of distractions for your character that you have to deal with in game. And the other one is wits. Wits is, I think, easier and harder than the other two.
It's easier on the player, but it takes more for the storyteller.
Yeah. God, I'm trying to remember. There was a really great movie that had someone with like amazing wits.
Are you thinking of Sherlock?
I was probably thinking Sherlock. If you haven't seen the Sherlock TV series from the BBC, it's just amazing uses of epic and epic wits. I guess epic perception too.
Yeah, and the Robert Downey Jr. movies are great too. Like if you've seen the second Sherlock movie, the scene with him and Moriarty at the very end is like two people with maxed wits blowing opening gambit on each other.
Yeah, so they're playing a game of chess, but they see every move that could happen, and along with that, like everything that move meant, like because they're putting like levels of meaning onto every move, like before anyone ever moves. So you see the whole scene play out, but then it hasn't played out yet.
And it actually only takes maybe 5 seconds to happen. If
that much, yeah. And they're doing it while conversing.
And you need, 10 minutes of film to show you something that took 5 seconds to happen.
Right. So the important part there is that sometimes in game, if you have a lot of epic wits, and as a player you're not catching up, you'd be like, everybody stop. Okay, I'm calling my epic wits time. Everybody maybe get a beer, chill out for a minute. I really need to think, because my character is thinking so fast and I can't do that.
And as a storyteller, watch for your players that have a lot of epic wits. And if they're struggling, or they're like, I don't know what I'm doing yet, or they're having trouble when it comes around to their turn, sometimes call that break for them.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it all the time, because you don't want to drag the game down and have it be, taking forever for anyone to get anything done.
I think once or twice a game, giving them 5-10 minutes is completely reasonable. And so I think all three of the mental stats, what they really need most is working with the ST and just taking a lot of time to kind of figure that out and get into it. But I think once you do, they can be very rewarding, and probably some of the most rewarding, especially intelligence and your planning scope.
They're definitely a lot more difficult than physicals, because physicals just are, and you don't have to think about them. Yeah. But mentals, speaking from experience, when you set up something that takes you like 5 months to plan and it actually happens, it's pretty great. It's the best thing ever. So those are both our questions. I think we answered them. Let us know how we did. Obviously, I think the sound and video is going to be kind of not great. And I don't even know if this is going to work. Like, we could be done here and it just didn't work, and then we'll be angry. It's true. We could upload this and it could be blank.
Yeah, but we'll see you next time. I don't know. Probably like us on YouTube. I think that helps us with whatever. Or Vimeo.
Yeah. Wherever we put this.
Wherever we put this, hit the like button. Okay, and then on a lot of YouTube videos, they like point down here and they say do something down here, and then like there's stuff over here you can touch.
We don't have stuff, but in the future we might have stuff.
Yeah. So all right, well, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.